Trying to look up the Hebrew word for passion. I can see how it can seem somewhat blurry, right? And how right now we're in a blur. We want clarity, right? So I like this because it seemed like it completely cleared it up for me. So I will read it to you, right? Cleave, the Hebrew word for passion, by Jamie Moran. Cleave to God. Because the word passion is so degraded today, confused with ego, ambition, sex, bullying, etc., I also use a lot of other terms which seem cognate with the meaning I want to establish. I have a number of key metaphors and alternate expressions such as the leap into the unknown, being staked to the ground, and others. I see passion as the key to the Jewish approach to faith in the Old Testament. I now think I have found another word in Hebrew for the Greek passion. This word is cleave. Cleave is a strange and powerful word which turns up in various places and in various ways throughout the Hebrew Bible. A man cleaves to his woman in marriage. The tongue cleaves to the roof of the mouth. Tired bones cleave to the skin. But what really grabbed me was that in Deuteronomy, early on in the Old Testament, the text repeatedly says, again and again, cleave to God. Passion is our cleaving to God. I love the very word cleave. In English, as in Hebrew, this word carries a paradox, a contradiction, a mystery, a secret. For it means both to join with and to separate. In fact, more concretely, it means a warm embrace. But yet, when we wield a sword, we can cut an opponent's head in two. We cleave them in half. To cleave is at one and the same, to hold on to and to unite with, yet also to rend, to tear into pieces, to divide. Poetically, this captures the peculiarity of passion as I have written of it in so many different ways. To cleave is to love. Yet this very love contains a sacred violence, a fight, a separating. Cleave is not cognate with the Greek agape. I believe agape is the crown of eros. It's compassion, it's philanthropy, it's benevolent charity. Cleave, by contrast, is the dragon of the demonic. It's the cone of fire, divine and human. Without cleaving, we cannot face and come through the wound of existence. As my passion book names all the existential exactions that befall us as a fate, the Greek for passion, pathos, carries this connotation of being put in a room of no exit, where the alternatives disappear, and it all comes down to only a very few but immensely powerful moves you can make on the rim. Oh, dang. In Greek, passion is what you suffer inescapably. It is not so obvious in Greek that this suffering can generate the ultimate order of advocacy for the human. The most zealous and unrelenting fighting spirit, or thymos. But the Hebrew cleave is more strong in both its passive acceptance of what cannot be changed and in its weirdly and inexplicably active way of meeting that, of staying with that, of wrestling that, and coming through that. This is where the sense of violence comes into cleaving. As in the biblical statement, Matthew 11 and 12, the kingdom of heaven suffers violence, and the violent take it by force. It punches through by accepting the unacceptable and knocks down and punches through existential walls. It strides into and crosses existential gaps that simply cannot be knocked down or crossed except by the power of this kind of passion. It is this passion that God encouraged in Israel. Unlike the Greeks, who, though they recognized the demonic wound of fate and the suffering passion it sparked, as in flamenco, music's deep song, or duende, nevertheless gradually turned against all passion per se, for the sake of light, transcendence, joy, freedom, unassailable knowledge of spirit. The demonic was rejected in favor of Eros, the divine dark that indwells the dark of existence, potentially to fruition, the light that loves and heals what comes to light in its gracious and golden embrace, the realm of Logos. The Jewish cleaving does not make this flight from the demonic, but violently embraces its violence, not only being cut to shreds by it, but cutting through it to reach a far shore otherwise not reachable. This passionateness of heart, and for the Jews, the whole span of its holy mystery, from primitive beginnings to increasing existential sophistication, is summed up in this word: cleave to God. And cleave to this world in its redeemability. Without the increasingly deeper cleaving that is deepened passion, the human being does not arrive at holiness and stands outside the most wonderful and horrendous mystery in existence: the wisdom of the heart, the wisdom of God, at stake in the blood, sweat, and tears of this world. The hidden God and the hidden wisdom are only fleshed out of their place of hiding, are only dug out through the cleaving that is passion's free and loving embrace of existence wound. Kierkegaard's understanding of passion as necessary to existing brings his account close to the biblical cleaving. A quote I found recently says something along these lines: we need passion to exist. And if you do not realize this, you just do not understand what it means to exist. In which case, you are not really here, but in some head trip to somewhere else. You have left existence in this world. For some people, they go off via fantasies of sex or wealth or status. For some, they go off on control, power over things, domination. Some go off on comfort, luxuriating. Some go off on philosophy, theology, ontological structures. We all choose our preferred escape. Without cleaving, we do not have the energy, the muscle, even the motive and intentionality to stay, to get stuck in, to see it through to the end. Without cleaving, we cannot stand in this world and really take on the terror and beauty of existence in all its existential bite. It is precisely this most irrational and testing reality of existence that hides within the depth of its existential predicament, the entire wisdom of God. This is what can become the wisdom of God, united with the wisdom of humanity and the travails, the struggles, and raptures of the deep passion of heart. Failing this, cleaving has no point. To cleave is an action, and it implies, to cleave is an action, and it implies a sticking to it, and sticking with it that is key to passion. And sticking with it is that it is key to passion. In the Orthodox Church recently, I heard another phrase from the Acts of Apostles that is also relevant here. The author refers to the fervor of spirit. Passion is the fervor of our spirit. But what could impassion such fervor if it were not the spirit? The passionate are not logos people. They're pneuma or spirit people. The spirit becomes the only help for those who risk the way of passion. And as Fyodor Dostoevsky, I'm sorry if I messed up that name, prophesied, in the future of the spirit will speak to and act directly on people through their passion of deep heart. This will disempower the church as an external structure and perhaps open up a space for it to find a new role, a new mode of being, to do a necessary job, but without what surrounds that now. Putting the two phrases together, cleaving and fervor of spirit, you get this. Those who cleave to God will receive the Spirit. Those who cleave to God will know the Spirit directly. The fervor of their spirit, which is the fervor and passion in their passion of deep heart. I ran into a plethora of slightly different nuanced accounts of the Hebrew root meaning of cleave. I found different spellings in English, such as QBDW and BAQA. Yet the range of meaning seems a family of close relatives, rather than strangers. The basic meaning is to adhere. When you adhere to something, you embrace it in a very strong way. The marriage context in Genesis speaks of leaving mother and father in order to cleave to the spouse, and by that cleaving to become one flesh, or as it was explained by certain Jewish scholars, to become a combined entity, a dual unity, not exactly a single person, but a closeness and intimacy so potent between them that the two persons become as one. This is not Oriental fusion, nor is it Western duality. Whatever we cleave to, be it in marriage, in fighting spirit, or in redeeming the world, passion and its other remain distinct, yet become as one. They break through to a conjoint new being. This is beyond oneness or two-ness. It is a state of communing. Martin Buber would call it I thou, or maybe that we which emerges from I thou as a further stage, its crown. Cleave is always in Hebrew in the masculine, singular, imperfect tense. Passion is spiritually masculine, as is in St. Peter's hidden man of the heart. It is singular because the impetus for it comes from deep within the unique person, the distinct personhood, the unrepeatable personalness. I cannot give myself to life for you, nor can you do this for me. It is something we must each do ourselves. And it is in the imperfect tense because it is an action, and this action is still incomplete. It is on its way, always traveling, battling, changing, shedding the old for the sake of the new. It has not arrived yet, but it is going, fundamentally on the move. Adhere means to stick to something, and it also means to stick to it, to remain committed through thick and thin. But there is this other and much more active, even aggressive implication to cleaving. Thus, it means to break open or break through. Indeed, to cleave also means to rend open, or even implies a violent cutting into pieces. There is a certain terror associated with cleaving in the Old English sense of the word terrible. Passion is terrible in this old manner of speaking because it does not relent. It is the hunter who cannot be deflected or distracted, seduced or intimidated off the hunt. It is the warrior whose fight will not submit. Passion carries on despite not because of conditions, circumstances, exigencies. It takes the hit and gets up and walks ahead. This aggressivity cuts things in half all right. It not only removes obstacles which are worldly and spiritual at once, but it hits the wall where most hearts must stop. And it batters this wall until it breaks through. Thus, passion separates those who cleave and continue from those who bail out prematurely because they cannot take it anymore. The cutting edge of cleaving also cuts through delusion, deception, lies. Thus, in every respect, it does not stop where most people stop. I dreamt of a friend recently who in the dream announces from the depth of their depression, I'm going to flush out God from the place where he is hiding. The aggressivity in cleaving is, at its most profound, a refusal to be put off by God's hiddenness, and becomes a fierce determination to break through to where God is hidden. In existence, depression slays all other hopes, dreams, yearnings of life so we can seek the one thing needful. God likes to be hidden, but likes even more those that not intimidated by the unknown God, the absent God, the defunct bad daddy God, who is either off somewhere else enjoying God's bliss, or even if with us cannot do anything effective anyway. On this hunt to dig out God from where God is hidden in the depth of existence, we pass through water and we pass through fire. We enter the dark, we plunge down, we go in over our head. We are stretched to breaking point and beyond. We go into hell, losing all hope. We curse God and die, but we do not. We continue even though we have lost anything and everything that could comfort us, secretly or religiously. We even let go guilt, blame, and condemnation of self or world or God. Cleave to God encompasses all this. God loves our violence of quest and makes it more so, makes it necessary if we are to continue without cashing in the chips. To stay in the game is impossible as the stakes go up and our losses spiral out of control. But to cleave means being in the game to the end. Many people give in and give up well before the end game is reached. To cleave is to hang in there and hang tough and refuse easier and safer reassuring substitutes. In the end, we hunger only for the reality and the truth that relates us to reality. In the end, we are naked and want nothing except the unvarnished reality and its truth. However hard, however costly, however heavy a weight to carry. This is where Cleave acquires its double sense of a love that not only warmly embraces reality, but separates reality from illusions. In the ultimate, and not only warmly embraces truth, but separates truth from lies in the ultimate. A person who cleaves to God is a lover of reality and a lover of truth. Such a person is not fooled by, drawn to, or in any way a lover of illusions and lies. When you cleave to what is what, you come to see and appreciate how what is not what kills existence in all its facets. Even in our fear of God, which in Hebrew means not something frightening or terrifying, but does suggest holy terror, awe, respect, reverence, we should begin to understand that the demonic is serious, not messing about. And that if we enter the demonic way of loving, the way of fire and earth, the way of suffering, the way of dark, the way of sacrifice, then this will subject us to the terribleness of God, which is at the same time the terribleness of love. It is a terrible thing to fall into the hands, what's that? Hebrews 10:29 or 10:39, one of them, right? It is a terrible thing to fall into the hands of the living God. But all existence is in these hands. And risking and suffering and venturing this in order to find God in existence, it's much more terrible. It's not pap for infants. What? It is not the rules and regulations, the well-marked paths of conservatives. It is not the sloppiness and timidity and indifference of liberals. It is serious. To be a lover of God, to be a lover of this world in its redeemability, and to vow to find God in the place in the existential paradox and predicament where God is hiding is terrible. But such is cleaving. Its flame is warm. But this flame is also terrible. But such is cleaving. Its flame is warm, but this flame is also terrible. The burning that ignites through cleaving is zealous and fervent, not simply warmly generous with loving kindness. To cleave is to fight for something, and to fight for something to be separated from it. Ooh. Yet refuse to allow that separation to become final. In marriage, we are separated, yet fighting to become united. In the fight for the world, in the fight for redemption, not transcendence of existence, we are separated from redemption's 8th day of completion, but traveling toward it, battling to reach it, struggling to make it real, and sacrificing our all to make it truth. Such is the warmth and burning of the flame kindled in our cleaving. Cleaver, not believer. But I've discovered another amazing theme. When people speak so often in English of believing in God, they are misspeaking and misunderstanding what they are saying. To cleave to God actually means to trust God as an unknown and hidden reality and truth, as a sought for but not yet found mystery. To cleave to God means to have faith in, to rely on, and to depend on this great mystery. Now, the vital point where the English biblical text speaks of believe, the equivalent Greek biblical text uses pistio, and this verb is much closer to cleave, with all its risk-taking and personal faith, trusting, relying on, depending on. In effect, we should stop speaking of ourselves or others as believers, because what this really means, even in Greek, and much more so in Hebrew, is that we are all cleavers. We are cleaving to a mystery. We are adhering to it. And as it is cutting through us, we are cutting through it to reach a far shore. To break open and break through to a new land of heart. For where is God hidden in existence? God is hidden in the deeps of existence. And that means God is hidden in the deeps of the heart. When we cleave, we go through hells, pits, voids of God's absence. And these times and places, we are in a strange terrain. And belief in any creedal sense does not help us in such a situation. It is in some ways a shame that the early Christians thought they needed a creed in words. I believe in this and that, the other. This is Greek, not Jewish. Cleaving is existential or doctrinal. As Martin Buber puts it, you do not cleave to your idea of God, a statement about God. You cleave only to God. Nor do you even cleave to your relationship with God, because you do not cleave to a relationship. You cleave only to God. The cleaving is the relationship, and however much you try to state or think it's mystery, the mystery is itself existentially challenging. It causes us black inexplicable pain. And Federico Garcia Lorca's words, "In the mystery eludes all words and all thoughts. It is found, understood, its wisdom dug up only in a living way in the throes and in the thick of existential problem itself." The Jewish cleave means go through this, be in it, weep, curse, cry out, let deep call to deep. This is faith. Their dogmas and doctrines are existentially dangerous because they encourage people to flee the existential cauldron and take refuge in the words and thoughts which try to express mystery, but still are not and never can be the living mystery. Nothing replaces the black inexplicable pain of living in the predicament where we must lose or find this mystery. Search and hunt for this mystery, or give up on it, and by virtue of that, give up on our own personal heart. And give up on humanity's heart in the world. Equally, when in John 11:25 we read Christ saying, "Whoever believes in me, although he may die, yet shall he live," we should know that rendering the English as "whoever believes in me" is fundamentally misleading. In this case, suggests assent to a creed with our head or emotion, assent to dogmatic or doctrinal propositions. But this is not what Christ is saying. Christ is saying whoever cleaves to the Christ in the deeps, where all is lost, will come through to the other side. I know many anti-religious believers who are, and despite that, or indeed because of that, cleaving to God, and even cleaving to Christ in the dark and difficult, deep place where real passion is afflicted, stricken, hurt, broken, yet at the same time forged, destroyed, and reborn. Its metal and steel purged and honed and raised to fiery life. Belief in God means cleaving to God in the midst of the absurdity of existence and in the midst of all that destroys us and God and world. All hope in life, all hope in secular things, and all hope in religious things is burnt up, lost to the deep, swept away, or burnt up in the unknownness, the hiddenness, the mystery of God. Yet we go on. Yet we proceed. Yet we will not turn back. This is cleaving. It is irrational, yet something equally irrational on God's side summons us, calls to us, pulls us along. This points to another meaning of cleave I discovered on my trawling. When we humans cleave to God, there is a sense of a more dependent being leaning on a more firm being. The old hymn, Rock of Ages, invites the cleaver to lean on God. Israel was invited to do this towards God. Christ speaks in this same vein when offering to carry our yoke with us, not that he will carry it for us, but he will conjointly carry it with us. The weaker can lean on the stronger, and by this gradually assimilate their strength and the properties and attributes of steadfastness, enduring and undergoing, and most powerful of all, bearing up. This means that cleaving is not only a personal action of heart. Passion is what the heart does, not just its muscle and energy, but its deed. Cleaving is also a trust and faith in, a leaning and depending on a personal God who gives God's personal word. This is already evident in the biblical cleaving of marriage. You pledge your troth. You give your word to be real, to be serious, to be committed about the impossible task of two becoming as one. Similarly, a warrior makes a vow. which promises him to the fight. This is where cleaving and believing are so different. Believing is shallow. You can do it with your head or with your emotion, while cleaving is deep. You can only do it with your deepened, suffering and struggling, ventured, risked, weight carrying heart. Believing and cleaving are on different levels entirely. Believing is abstract and theoretical, but cleaving is existentially concrete and actual. You remain within your comfort boundary when you believe. You put yourself on the line when you cleave. I know only a very few people who believe and cleave. I know many people who believe and do not cleave. I know even more people who do not and will never believe, but who cleave. You will only know which of these three you are if you examine your heart. Do you use religion to skate over the existential deeps where God is hidden? Or have you let these deeps wound you so that you might die in them, or find this very dying the leverage, the spark from which you launch your search for the one thing needful, your search for the unknown and hidden God, right in the midst of the existence in this world? The believer can be cool, calm, and collected. The person of cleaving has terrible ups and downs. Weeps bitter tears, knows the heartbreak of God, absent from the human heart, and the human heart absent from itself and all the world. Believing in the bright Christ of dogma and doctrine is not the same as cleaving to the dark Christ, who is in the deeps where all human beings are lost. The person whose life is cleaving will seek and search, hunt and track, fight and wrestle and struggle to dig up the heart of God from the place where it is hidden in the heart of each person and in the heart of all the world. The person whose life is cleaving will find the heart of God, and by this find their own heart and find the heart in all the world. To cleave is passion. It points to a strong love whose commitment is personally trothed, pledged, vowed, promised, and by putting up with all the cuts that come through this immersion and plunge into existence, cuts through. There's a lot of guff, waffle, flim flam, as well as all the poison to cut through. If you cleave, you are cut by God. And this enables you to cut through yourself and cut through the world. Such is the black of suffering and the red of fighting spirit and passion. Cleaving, therefore, also carries the connotation not only of making a vow and promising yourself to the whole damn thing, no matter what, but also of this commitment being manifested in an increasingly hard-fought and hard-won loyalty, fidelity, or faithfulness, all of which can be summed up as truthfulness. Be strong, we say in the Canti-10s, but we could also well as be true. God has to an extent we do not understand, because we have not broken through to its reality, truth, wisdom in the heart already cleave to us. God has pledged God's troth, vowed and promised God's self, been loyal, faithful, true to us no matter what. This is the significance of the deeds God performed in the Old Testament to encourage the Jews. God cleaved the Red Sea to let them through, to escape Egypt. Psalm 74:15. God cleaved the rock in the desert to give them water as they traversed the lost place, looking for the new land. Psalm 78:15. Many people misconstrue these events of divine providence. They do not mean we will not, in leaving Egypt, be dumped in the vast desert before we can reach the promised land. This promised land is a new land of heart. We will share with God when God's heart is found. Our heart is found. The world's heart is found. It is not yet. They do not mean we will not, in leaving Egypt, be dumped in a vast desert before we can reach the promised land. This promised land is a new land of heart we will share with God when God's heart is found. Our heart is found. The world's heart is found. It is not yet, but it is what both the old and new covenants are pledged to. This is what it was always about. These events of divine providence or divine wisdom weaving into the story of existence lived out on the ground occurred for one reason: not to promote naive, facile, escapist hope, but to tell us something more fundamental, something we sense, but which God occasionally comes out of hiding to the reveal. This is what we are not asked and not inspired to cleave to a God who is not cleaving to us. We cleave to God because before we were forged in the furnace of passion, He cleaved to us. Those who cleave will find the heart of God, their own heart, the heart of the world, because in cleaving to us, God is determined to find our heart and the heart of the world. Job's repentance, this cleaving to God in the absurdity of existence, is the deepest passion and brings us through a door that otherwise never opens to a new land of heart. Passion is cleaving to God, no matter what. And through that, we come to cleave to the world in its redeemability, no matter what. When we go far enough in passion, these two things become the same. It's all about one thing only: a new land of heart. It is not yet, but it is coming. Cleaving is passion because what it relies on in its courage and vulnerability is the not yet. It means in the heart, your word is good enough. Here in the end, Logos and spirit converge. Logos makes the promise. Spirit brings it to pass. In and through the very agony that most threatens its loss. This is why in the end and at the deepest, there is no goal, no point, no justification for cleaving. It resists all explanation. Theological, psychological, and scientific. Cleaving cleaves in order to cleave. This is sufficient. To say more now, it would be cheating. And cleaving is the only honest thing in existence. Again, that was by Jamie Moran. Cleave, the Hebrew word for passion. Cleave to God. God bless.